Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, I hope everyone is okay. This is going to be a patron appreciation show. So at the end of the show, I'm going to take this video and I'm going to upload it to Patreon. And it will be locked there in perpetuity forever for patrons. I do this because I want to show appreciation to the patrons. And at this point, the channel has been demonetized, so for the most part, patrons pay for the content. Before I kick this off, let me check my sound. You always check your sound. Right there. That's why you always check your sound. People say, Jamal, why do you check your sound? It seems so unprofessional that you check your sound. Because in moments like that, I would have did a show with sound 20 points less than what they should have been. Sometimes it switches. I just had a conversation with Garland Nixon on his radio show. And when doing something like that, the volume decreases. Just one of those things. I do it just because I've been burned by it so much. I asked people to put what they wanted on the last video that I did last week. Now, first, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. There are a lot of people who are going to watch this video that aren't necessarily patrons. What I would ask of you, if you dig what I am putting down, please consider giving, even if it's just $1, to assist with the content. It's just what we're trying to do to get off of Google. I have a few announcements before I even get into it. So, all right, so let's do the announcements first. Everybody hates announcements, but announcements are good and important. And in this case, they're actually really important. When I first started my channel, I didn't pay any mind to patrons or anything else. I didn't care about that stuff. That stuff was irrelevant to the process. I was just doing the news. I was a dude doing the news. That's all I was, a dude doing the news. I'd get off work after being a software engineer in this totalitarian system, and I'd shed all of that. And in my ferocious anger at being bit into whatever that is that they need you to be for the company, I will be the god of that space and a dude doing the news. My pushback, my resilience, my level of resistance of this is not the reality that they try to assert. At some point along the way, being a dude doing the news turned to a show. This was emergent. This wasn't the original intention. It's like morality. It becomes one of those things that's emergent just based upon the way things are propagating. And I started paying more attention to, okay, how do you get more people to watch your show? How do you get more people to enjoy your show? What are the things you need to do to update your show to make it more, you could say, likable, while at the same token being remaining true to who you are? There have been other shows who took other methods, either continuously hating Clinton, either continuously hitting TYT. I was ferocious in wanting my show to just be me. When I get up in the morning and I start talking, I want it to be me. I don't want to be anybody else. So that's the way I've operated. Now, I went into this and I just put a bunch of stuff on Patreon, and I was trying to entice, while at the same token not necessarily fully paying attention to it. I guess if that makes sense. My wife is far better at this stuff than I am. And her and I have sat down and gone through Patreon in regards to what we want to give going forward. Something that we know we can do and something that we know we can essentially put out. So the Patreon levels have been updated. I absolutely understand if it's one of those things of we don't like this, we're taking our ball and going home. Trust me, I understand. When I wrote them the first time around, I should have did it right. That said, burning away the brush, we're going forward. And in going forward, we've updated the accounts. Now, that's it. Patron appreciation is going to be every week. It's going to be either Friday through Sunday, but through one of these days, but every once a week. I liked it. I like it a lot, and I think it brings in people where they can kind of have a conversation with the audience. We know that we're going to be at a certain place at least once a week. I'm trying to think of the other items at the top of my head. I can't think of them at the top of my head. But t-shirt giveaways, that's going to be part of the process. That's not going anywhere. That's also going to be once a week for the patrons. here's another part. I've added a community poll. I've added that poll in the community here on YouTube and on Patreon itself. The question is this: would you prefer this show to be a 2-hour show that operates once a day, Monday through Friday? Now, I know at the very act of me even saying this that I'm probably not going to be able to, I'm going to do more than just that. Even if it's a 2-hour show Monday through Friday, I guarantee you I would not be able to sit still and not do the show. I have the added bonus of actually liking doing the show, so it's not something I need to force myself to do. I kind of just do. So, but still, people, it's easier for people to find the show if they know that at a certain time every day, Monday through Friday, there's going to be a show that takes place. So that's why I asked that part. I think that's it. Yeah, I don't like giving those either. I like just doing the news. So there's that. Oh, by the way, t-shirt winner. The t-shirt winner this week, Wolfgang Lang. Wolfgang Lang. I've contacted them. Hopefully he's okay with me announcing his name. But you, sir, will get a t-shirt. I need to know where you live, what size of the t-shirt to send you. The other t-shirts have been ordered. Those t-shirts are on their way to the house, in which case I would sign them and send them on their way out. So, for the most part, I've been trying to be a pretty busy beaver with regards to the stuff that's dealing with the show that's not necessarily me spouting. There's always parts of the job that you don't like all that much. But nevertheless, it's part of the show nonetheless. Here's the other part. One of the things I'm also going to update is how I want to be able to cut the videos in the shows. This show is going to be added to SoundCloud, which is going to be added to podcasts. That's the natural extension of the show, especially whether it's 2 hours or whether it's broken up into segments. So that's going to take place. I've even had the videos that I'm doing tonight that I'm probably going to sit here and push those things up to SoundCloud. I've gotten a logo for the show. There's that. That's interesting news, at least interesting for me. And I've gotten to the point of getting somebody to try to do an intro video for me. So when this show comes on, it comes on as an intro. Now, I don't necessarily know how to pull that off from the standpoint of a live show, but if a show is 2 hours and it's sliced up, it comes as somewhat of a natural happenstance for slicing the show up in that way. Even if the show is not broken up that way, even if it's still just segments, still those things can be added to it. So that's all the news. That's all the news for the show. Now, if you enjoyed the content as we go about this way, and even if you're not part of Patreon, even if you are part of Patreon, you can support the show through, Jesus Christ, a super chat alternative. In the link, you can click on it. A little Vulcan will come up and say thank you very much. It really is a Vulcan. All right, so I got to be honest. I didn't see many posts under the last video, so I'm going to do one of the items that I wanted to do. I saw this on World Socialist website, and I was going to do this just as a regular video, but I do it for you guys. Google censorship. Did you see this? So Google, Twitter, these guys go to Congress. Now, we saw this as a comically funny video with Marco Rubio being trolled relentlessly, remorselessly by Alex Jones. Yeah, relentlessly by Alex Jones. Now, I want to show you what's taking place here, and then I'm going to explain what I mean by this. But I want you to see what was happening, because this is fucking hilarious, I gotta be honest. And yes, this is one of the funniest things on the planet to happen that day. And so I'm going to show you this, but there's a larger and more interesting context to this, believe it or not, than just Alex Jones trolling Marco Rubio. Wait a minute. In my other video, people were saying that they weren't able to hear this. So let me just make sure there's nothing hinky here. I'm sorry, guys. I remember this at the last minute. I didn't hear, that was a Young Turks video that for whatever reason, people couldn't hear. So let's do it this way. I'll just put it through a different input. Alright. And I'll play it through the mic volume. Okay. Whoa, that isn't my playing at all. This. What the hell? Alright, I made it worse. Alright, I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I made it worse. I hope you can hear that. I've been having weird stuff with my audio playing through my video. I'll fix it after this. But he's trolling him relentlessly. This goes on for another like 2 minutes, where Alex Jones is doing a show while Marco Rubio is just standing there. Just standing there. And at some point Marco Rubio is like, "Don't touch me, man." And he's like, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" Now, this is gold to Alex Jones, because Alex Jones loves the fact that he's being engaged. These guys are trying to silence him, and now he's being engaged. He's been thrown off of all these networks. And here he is defiantly looking at the senator in the face. This is awesome for him. This is great. It could have only been better if Marco Rubio actually hit him, or if there were cops that came and dragged Alex Jones out. That's the only means by which that would have been better. Now, here's the reality of this. Google is saying that there's no censorship. That we're not doing anything that's causing censorship, where we're maliciously stopping certain sites from getting information. Now, as someone who was a software engineer, who worked in the software engineer department for God knows how many years, I think 8 years, this is, of course, nonsense. Logically, it's nonsense. But I'm telling you from my own experience, it's nonsense. Let's take the example of Data for the moment. Do you remember Data? The Star Trek episode. Yes, they're related. In the Star Trek episode, Data is captured. I've mentioned this before. Data is captured. Data, the guy, is a plutocrat. He wants Data to sit there and just be right there. He wants the sentient computer in all of the universe. So something unlike anything else. And he wants to be able to possess the thing that's unlike anything else. It's how he got his kicks. It's how he got his jollies off. Now, Data, of course, is like, "I'm not doing this. This is nonsense. You're not going to have me sit here like this. I have agency." And just like if it was anybody else that was captured and stuck in a cage, you would imagine that person would try to get out that cage. Now, it gets to a point, and it comes to a head, where the woman who helps Data is murdered by the guy, by the guy who wants to keep Data there. And Data is holding a weapon. And Data points the weapon at him. And he turns to Data. He tells him, "What are you going to do? You're not going to kill me. I mean, ultimately, your programming, your ethical subroutines doesn't allow you to do that. I am going to kill one person after the next. And from the standpoint of your ethical subroutine, it is more ethical for you to sit in that chair than to do anything that would essentially stop me." Now, the problem here is that Data is holding a weapon. And as he's telling Data this, Data is weighing and measuring and is coming to conclusions. And one of the conclusions that he came to was, it is better to kill this person than to let this person live. Now, that's a shocking conclusion. Now, the wild part about it is they beam Data just in the nick of time, a hand of God. And they say, Data, your weapon had been essentially initiated. And Data lies. He lies. This is an amazing show. Now, the point that I'm getting here is Data's workable point of view, his subroutines, were not something that was given to him by God. They were given to him by man. That was somebody that programmed those. Now, Data might have advanced beyond a certain point. Data might have expanded his workable point of view. Data might have thoughts of his own. But ultimately, those thoughts of his own have boiled down to somebody who put in a value of something into Data's subroutines, or into the primary nature of Data's subroutines. Some value. There was a person there. My point to this is, there was always somebody putting a value somewhere, meaning there was always a person there. Any update to the systems that Google is doing, just like any update to the systems of Data, involves somebody putting a number somewhere. Somebody made a choice. It was a subjective choice on what stories, what articles are better than others. World Socialist website has made this point over and over again, that they've been getting their readership gutted based on the changes that Google made to their search algorithm. That's not by God, that's by choice. That's what I'm getting at. Now, Google will say that's not censorship. That's literally censorship. If they're making a choice to change people's viewing habits to look at one versus the other. When left to its own devices, people would prior chose something else. World Socialist website has had their content gut by like 70%. Black Agenda Report, same thing, content gut, meaning the number of people that would typically go to their sites ravaged. Ravaged. That display with Alex Jones is cartoonish. It is utterly funny and hilarious. But the problem of it is there's real world consequences surrounding it. Their reality surrounding it. It is censorship. It is government putting its foot on private enterprise, and that private enterprise turning around and downplaying and undermining certain content that it doesn't like. And one last step to this, an interesting point. Donald Trump comes out and makes a point that these guys are shaping reality. These guys are shaping reality. That these guys essentially are censoring content. Now, what's his name? Jeff Sessions decides that he's going to have a conversation with the various state attorneys to determine whether or not tech companies have been censoring and squashing free speech. It's amazing. This has become the next step in a political war. It's become the next step in a political war. So I thought I was being clever with the Star Trek and the data reference, because I think it works. In the same way that this magnificently fascinating computer, Data, somebody programmed him with an ethical subroutine that allowed him to weigh one thing as being more ethical and moral than something else. And some of this was him learning in this kind of emergent way of what's right versus wrong. But there was something there in the beginning that allowed him to even have a workable point of view to get him to the point of making that judgment in the first place. I'm saying the idea that Google is making the point of saying their computer is making a judgment call on its own is nonsense. Somebody had to have been there to give that a primary number of comparison in the first place. The computer's programmed. The computer is not doing this on its own. If their content, if the numbers of people going to these social, like World Socialist website or Black Agenda Report, if that number has gone down by such a precipitous amount, it didn't do it on its own. It did it because somebody put another number in. And Google saying that we've been updating the algorithm and everything else is the epitome of what they're saying from the standpoint of the update and of the adjustment. By their own words. It's been an update. Now, they don't call it censorship, but it doesn't matter what you call it. Ultimately, the result, and in the result of what you've done has, let's say, decapitated the readership that's going to certain sites. And the only reason you would do that is if you're making some way a determination between one site or another in a subjective way as being more intellectually nutritious. I'll go with that. I'll go with that. Let's see. Oh wow, there are a lot of people commenting on that one specific post. Because I'm asking people because I'm trying to include. It's not going to be radical transparency because I want the site to be. I want to enjoy it. But I got to be honest. In a real way, you guys pay for the content. Yeah. So when I ask in earnest. I'm taking what you guys saying as being legit. Wesley Walker. Wow, Wes. Thank you, man. Thank you, Wes. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Data is a human actor on a TV show. I know. They know. Data is not a human actor on a TV show. Data is a character in the Star Trek universe. Brent Spiner is an actor on a TV show. Bam. Bam. Just ink pen drop. Wesley Crusher had an iPad. Wesley Crusher did have an iPad. He did have an iPad. How can you call Data ethical when he spent almost the first few seasons trying to throw Wesley out of an airlock and continually tried to take over the ships? He's only did that once. And just like you as a person can be impaired and drunk at a party and grab an ass of a woman by accident, Data can also be impaired to have his systems, screwed up. Shit happens. Shit happens. Glad that made you feel good, Jamal. Pet hacker. Pet hacker. I was thinking the same thing. What do you mean? Guy, what made who feel good? I don't think you can call Data ethical. Oh, you mean saying that? Yeah, it made me feel good. It made me feel good. It was a burn, Pat. It was a burn. Burn. It was a burn. All right, I want to talk about a UFO case. And it's not really a UFO case. If you guys remember, what's the gentleman's name? Luis Elizondo. Now, for those of you who don't know, Luis Elizondo was a gentleman who worked in the UFO. He was the guy who was in the Black Budget Project. Under, I guess you can say, under the push from Harry Reid, that was studying UFOs. Essentially, we were scientifically studying items that are coming in and out of our airspace. And when asked the question on CNN, are there people visiting us? He said, from his own opinion, the answer is yes. Now, the point of Luis Elizondo, regardless of what Luis Elizondo is saying in an intermediary step, is to confirm to you that this is real. The rock star, God, I can't think of his name. The one that was running the company Academy to the Stars. They used to work, that played for Blink 82. I can't think of his name to save my life. Usually my audience can help me out on this. Damn it, I can't think of his name. But the rock star that was interacting, everybody thought the rock star was full of it. And then after seeing the Clinton leaks, they realized that, oh my God, his name is all throughout this document. And what people don't talk about a lot is that the fact that the UFOs are all throughout the Clinton leaks. Those email leaks have a ton of information about UFOs. It's fascinating. Elizondo, in addition to a bunch of other people that were given to the rock star, was done so in a way of saying this subject is legitimate. On mainstream news, MSNBC, CNN, what's the other one? Politico, Washington Post, New York Times, all of these people came out with these stories covering this specific UFO thing. And again, the reason they're doing this is confirmation. I'm trying to make that very clear. This is not disclosure. Meaning this is not Donald Trump standing out in front of the White House saying, there are aliens and here's the body and here's the shit and this is what we got. I'm Trump. They're not doing that. They're not doing that at all. The moment that you open that door, you've opened that door. That is a hot door. The handle is burning hot. If you open that door, what does it mean for people who said they were abducted? What does it mean for people who say that they were men in black that was approaching them? The government would have lied about this for the last 40, 50 years. Are you telling me that at this point you can completely trust what they're saying in the standpoint of being abducted? All sorts of shit come through that door. The moment that you touch that door, depending on how you open that door. They've opened this door in a particular way. In the sense of saying, look, we've been studying this just for 1 year. Now that's bullshit right by itself. It's nonsense. It was understood going back by several UFO people, from people who were in the know of what, God, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue. Tom DeLonge, thank you. Of what Tom DeLonge had resources in this way. They assumed Clinton would win. Clinton didn't win. They knew what Tom DeLonge had. And Tom DeLonge had this for months, for years. So the idea that they were only doing this for a year was nonsense. Right off the bat. The premise of this is not necessarily being straightforward, but you must understand, from their standpoint and the way that they're releasing this information, however this information is released, once it's out, it's out. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can obfuscate all you want. You can try to make, derision all you want. But ultimately, the reality of this is, from a mainstream media standpoint, and what's considered to be the logic of the way that we go about our day, this is the logic of things. The UFO part is the reality of things. That is the part that has been introduced in the mainstream media, and the mainstream media, whatever you want to call it, has accepted this to some degree to be true. Because after all, if they don't, it means that they're disbelieving the governmental sources. I mean, after all, you've had two new Navy guys that were in the craft, flying around looking at this object. And these people came out, got in front of the television, and talked to the camera. This is unprecedented. Nothing like this has taken place before. Not only do you have the paper trail, not only do you have the videos, and I understand that the videos are nonsense, but the beauty of the videos is not the videos. It's the guys who are saying, yes, I was on that ship. Yes, I was looking at that radar. Yes, I was on that airplane. And yes, this is real. Yes, this is real. Is it possible that we have something like this in our bunkers? Yes. Yes. Is it also possible that this is not ours? Yes. They could be lying to us. They could be telling us the truth. And it could be somewhere in between. We don't know. This is a terrifying reality. The information is being put out by a bunch of spooks. Luis Elizondo is coming out with this information, and he's seeming to be the front guy for the way this information is being released. I don't know whether that's good or bad. I get worried that it trends towards bad, whether intentional or not, because of the lever and the crowbar that Luis Elizondo is using to get this information out into the public. It is difficult to get something out sometimes without giving a reason that this needs to be out in a sense of urgency. It seems the crowbar that they're using to get this out is, this is a national emergency, which terrifies me. You're talking about UFOs and you're using national emergency. That terrifies me. This idea of there's ships that are penetrating our airspace. We don't know what they're there for. Maybe there is something wrong with this, and maybe there's a threat here, and there's a threat that we need to take seriously. That's terrifying. What does that mean? What does that mean? What are you going to do to take that threat seriously? And let's be honest. This phenomena has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The threat here and the problem here is the way that we're perceiving this, not the other way around. I'm sorry. There's nothing that we've been given to give any level of indication that this is a threat, outside of there's something invading our airspace. The very act of something invading your airspace is not the same thing as it being a threat, unless you want to just say any random thing that we don't necessarily have a handle on is a threat. As an absolute, maybe, but in realistic terms. This is why unidentified aerial phenomena are a national security risk and also an opportunity for progress. What kind of progress? If this is put through the lens of a risk, what kind of progress? That's the terrifying part of this. You have a bunch of people who are functioning in a military capacity, and this idea that a hammer is going to look at the world through some of the means other than everything else being a nail. It's possible that Luis Elizondo can do this. But I'm on a political channel, and I look at the machinations of people in the political process, and I ask myself, why would I believe that Luis Elizondo would be different? even in the case of something with such gravity as UFOs. A career's worth of intelligence work for the US government has taught me one key lesson. National security is a lot like playing a game of chess. You have to anticipate your opponent's every move in order to remain one step ahead. Disclosing your strategy will be used against you, but if you recognize certain opportunities, you can win the match. When I headed the government's highly secretive Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, I worked with the team to assess whether particular chess piece, in this case in the form of an unfamiliar area technology, was a threat to our side of the chessboard. If it was, we had to know how to counter. Something that has potentially traveled across intergalactic space or through some kind of dimensional thing, and you're talking about countering it. Do you know what it is? First. Now, the interesting part to this is, in some of his other lectures, he's explained that they know the equations on how these things fly. Not necessarily knowing what's in it. They stay away from that rail, at least from the standpoint of the public. But how they fly, what's the equations? What's the principle by which the craft is using to go from point A to point B, and how is it accomplishing those feats? How is it doing those things? According to Louis Alexander, they have a working model in a sense of a premise, like a sandbox version of proof of concept of the equations itself. I didn't think this was supernatural. I thought this was, to some degree, science, just supernatural in a way that we don't necessarily understand it. Most of these things I don't necessarily get scared about because I look at it as they're just something we don't particularly understand. It's like when Jean-Luc Picard, and God, and we use too many Star Trek references. When Picard first encounters Q and his response is, "What sort of being are you?" he didn't necessarily jump to the conclusion that Q was God. I venture to be that way. If I could get to that point, I would die a happy man. Since the government views unidentified aerial phenomena, they're using the term UAP. They're using UAP because they want to stay away from any kind of idea that people have associated with UFOs. There's a certain degree of transference that we as people have. Anything that's associated with UFOs that you grew up with, any idea that was attributed to it, you have a tendency to connect those images to the term. They want to avoid that. Now, I know that sounds minor. It's like, oh, dude, people are adults. They won't be able to. No, they're doing this for a reason. All of the stuff that built up around UFOs, they're believing or they want to be essentially sidestepped by using the term UAP. That's the reason why they're using UAP. They're the exact same thing. Since the government views unidentified aerial phenomena as a potential national security issue, they're secretive by necessity. They don't want to reveal any information to a potential enemy, but there's a risk to keeping that information classified. Say the person who learned how to harness the first or their fire never shared it with the next generation, or a person who invented the telescope threw it away after he was done using it. What if the creator of the wheel decided it was too labor intensive for others to build and decided, forget it? This is an interesting argument that I like. Essentially, look, we've been studying these things, and the information that we've been able to ascertain by studying these things should be there for the next generation of people to use, not something that's hidden from the next generation. We lose a generation because of the what this pushes us to be. Imagine for the moment that your country, you find out, yes, there are UFOs, and the first question is, how did they get here? Our science doesn't allow them to get here, so how are they getting here? Imagine knowing in advance the answer to a problem, or at the very least knowing that there is an answer to a problem. Your ability to work towards how to get to that point is sharpened by knowing that there is indeed an answer to it. It's like working in the dark as opposed to working in the dark knowing that there's a table nearby. It allows you advancement. His argument is we're kneecapping ourselves by being secretive. National security is one thing, but we shouldn't do it, you can say, at the point of injuring ourselves. It's not that I disagree with the argument. It's the context that this argument is being used in. Let's see. Government must assume that anything is a threat until it's been proven otherwise. This is the, he's making the case, an explanation of why the government behaves the way the government behaves. Hey, I know we kept this a secret for God knows how long, but we've had our reasons for doing so. The potential rewards outweigh the risks. Look, there's multiple factions, at least from the standpoint of what we've been told by Knapp. George Knapp. George Knapp has been very close to this. And what he says was there are multiple factions in the government itself that are pushing to try to get this information out. You can imagine that there are some people who don't want this information out, either through religious reasons or, let's say religious reasons, or some other reasons where they can't deal with the information itself. The catch of it is there are people pushing hard to get this data released. And they are using whatever crowbar they can use. And one of the crowbars seems to be, this is a national security issue that we need to talk about and discuss and not necessarily keep hidden. Luis Elizondo of this has been fascinating. Because initially we just dealt with the craft, just the nuts and bolts. And then later on, when he's out of the government and he joins Academy to the Stars, like immediately, he leaves the top secret one, go to the Academy to the Stars. And within a few, let's say, weeks, he's talking about goddamn aliens. So, it's fascinating. It's completely fascinating. Martian Villager, I'm surprised how much the national prison strike has been ignored by channels that are like, progressives should have covered that aggressively every day, the most advanced struggle in the U.S. today. I covered it early on when it first started. One of my subscribers pointed it out to me. I didn't know anything about it, but I did cover it. I do think it is important. The problem is, and this is one of those problems that was articulated by Chris Hayes, there are a group of people that would right off the bat agree with you, mostly. But it's kind of like covering climate change. Like, when I do videos on climate change, I'm always shocked that nobody cares about the videos on climate change. Now, it's not so much that the video is good or bad. There have been plenty of videos that I've done on climate change that have been actually pretty good. I don't know if it's people just agree with you right off the bat. I don't know if it's just one of those things where because you have to deal with capitalistic concerns of generating profit, like revenue for your channel. I don't know what it is, but there's something about certain topics that make it difficult to cover just because people don't watch. Even among people who would be inclined to watch. I don't know, man. I don't know. And there's zero indication that these craft are created by anything other than humans. Gardner, well, it's not zero indication. I mean, it's like saying, is there evidence that the craft are alien? Yes, there's evidence. Is there evidence that they're man-made? Yes, there may be evidence. If there's zero indication, that becomes a little bit much. Look, what it boils down to this. Either everybody that's in this process is lying, which is possible. So, Garden, I don't, it's not that I completely disagree with you. But it's also possible that these guys are not. Which is the part that you also need to entertain. So, the footage looks plenty fake. The footage is not the thing, to be honest. I mean, they could have given you a teacup flying through it. That doesn't really matter. What matters is the testimony of the people involved. Because the testimony of the people involved, whether they're lying to you or not, is setting the precedent of what's going to be considered reality. That's my point. That's why I said the footage matters less. What matters more is that you have these military guys who say, I was in a plane and I was looking at this thing out of my window. So, Pet Hacker, prison strikes have nothing in common with the weather change hoax. Yeah, I don't know what the prison strikes has to do with weather change. I would challenge hostile life forms on an air guitar battle. Shelly Farley, wait a minute, Shelly, I can't pronounce that word. It's totally going to ask me out. Okay, that name. Is Jamarl shilling us for the alien invasion? False flag? No. I don't have, I've covered this story from the beginning when this first came out. So, I trust footage more than Yankee soldier words. And they'll see, fair enough. Fair enough. But I'm just saying from the standpoint of, look, there's all sorts of footage that gets released. All sorts. Some of it is more legit than others, but there's all sorts of video footage that you can find online. The catch to this is, these guys were in the military and these guys are coming out saying it. I'm making the point to you that whatever you think is almost irrelevant. It's not irrelevant to you and to your family and everything else. But I'm saying, from the standpoint of media, what they're putting out is reality. Now, whether they're right, wrong, whether they're lying, whether they're anywhere in between, the reality of events is what they've put out in media. That's what I'm getting at. That is what I am getting at. So what did you guys think of I was gonna say Cory Booker. Like Cory Booker flipping out. And not just Cory Booker, there's a few of them. Jamal, I see you subscribed to Thomas Campbell. Yes. Are you down with the larger consciousness system? Yes. Yes. Yeah. I've had enough weird experiences to that I don't have this idea that this stuff is for naught. You know, when I operate in a political space, I just assume there is no God, because it doesn't really matter at that point. From a standpoint of our political space, I can't prove to you any God, and you can't prove to me you're a God. So we're making this just from logical, you can say, things that emerge. But left to my own devices, I've had enough weird experiences that gets me to this idea of there's something else. Does that inform kind of this humanitarian cause? Maybe. Maybe. I mean, I can make a logical argument of why I think people should work together in this idea of moving forward. But I make that argument on the grounds of how can I say this? I think I want to live a decent life. And I strongly suspect that most people on this planet feel the same way. I have to ask myself, what is the way that you can organize yourself to live a decent life without necessarily injuring and harming, while at the same token growing yourself? What system, what way of being, what way of operating allows me to do that? Now, I don't look at this from the standpoint of a label. I look at this from the standpoint of this kind of what is more or less ethical based on humanitarian guidelines of how can I create less pain and maximize happiness. That's the way I try to operate. Our system doesn't necessarily allow us to do that in a perfect way, not even in a great way. If I go get a banana, there was somebody who was probably ruthlessly exploited to get me that banana. If I get a hamburger, there was probably a cow somewhere that was abused and broken in giving me that cow. Not to mention at some point that thing was being murdered. Nearly everything that you do is stuck in this context. So it's like anything that you do to some degree creates a certain amount of unhappiness just because of the way we've organized ourselves. Yeah, the Tom Campbell's larger consciousness system, I like it. I like this idea. Tom Campbell is a little bit dogmatic. But underlying that is fascinating, especially his research with Bob. Damn it, what is his name? Bob Monroe. Bob Monroe. Progressives are not pro-worker enough. They care too much about privilege, liberal elite shit. That's why they won't cover the prison strike. We need to focus on the working class. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Something about that I don't like. Something about that I don't like, but I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it's the Everyday Progressive Show. Yeah, let's get into that for the moment. Let's get into that. Free will. I think free will is a myth. I think even under Tom Campbell's model, this idea of you fusing yourself into a particular, society, culture, family, and all this other stuff. The fact of the matter is, you're being stuffed with stuff from the time that you were born to the time that you're put off. And people believe that they have free will. This idea that if you're born in China, you're going to act to a certain degree Chinese, and you're going to have certain ideas and culture and everything else based on the Chinese. There's an aspect of it. That's you. But much of that is culture, family, society, etc. based on your time period and everything else. Meaning if you were born in the 50s versus if you're born in, 2010, you're going to have a different perspective of the world. Tom Campbell's motto, I guess it's like my issue is with the free will thing. I don't think you have free will. I don't think you have free will. I was born in China. I was pretty Americanized. I can hardly speak Chinese. Yeah, but is that the norm? Is that the norm? Like, there are some people who get beyond, the normal distribution of people in their context. Yes. But is that the norm? The overwhelming majority of people don't. They don't. It's like if you were born on Cleon, would you, act like a Cleon? Now, you may be Americanized because you have enough resources to be exposed to that stuff, like YouTube, Twitter, and all that other stuff. But what if you didn't? You would act like wherever you were raised. There would be a distribution of people who are at the edges of society, but the bulk of society would act like they were raised, like people around them. I'm not hot on this free will stuff. It doesn't necessarily seem like people have free will. I mean, even if you want to say, well, people grow up, yeah, but those people are growing up with a workable point of view that's shaping how they view and process the world. It's not just, it's not a flat value, it's an equation. You're processing the world in a particular way. To say, well, that person is free will, yeah, but that person's free will is constrained based on where that person came from and what that person learned and everything else. I'm just saying. Dark roasted lefty. I believe in Free Willy. He believes in Free Willy. Elon Musk said the odds we're living in a base reality is 1,000,000,000 to 1. I don't know why Elon Musk would know that. I don't know why Elon Musk would know that. I don't know what research, I don't know what experiment Elon Musk has done. Now, Tom Campbell is talking about doing an experiment that tries to literally nail down yes or no. He's trying to exclude all other factors and say, if this is true, then the other stuff falls away, and you have to entertain this idea that, yes, this may be some level of a simulation in the degree that what we call a simulation. Now, if Tom Campbell did that, and the very next day after that study, if that study was proved true, everybody would have a different perspective of themselves. Nothing would have changed. Nothing would have changed. Only thing that would have changed is their perspective of themselves. Now, you can call that a change, fair enough. But materially, nothing would have changed. Fascinating, though. What do it mean for us as human beings? Like, how does my relationship to you change in the moment that you know that all of us, for the most part, are fundamentally the same? Not to mention that there's more than this. It'll be fucking fascinating, man. It'll be extraordinarily fascinating. Musk is Lord. Musk is Lord. The order of chaos. The first duty of every Star Trek officer is to the truth. Whether that truth is scientific or personal truth doesn't matter. Is that so? Why did Cisco? Hold on to that lie to allow the Romulan Empire to get into to the Federation? If the first duty to every Star Trek officer is the truth, is it the duty of the Star Trek officer to put the truth above winning the war? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? That's what I want to know. Your mom is going to prison if you tell the truth. Do you shut the fuck up? Now, let's take this to Cisco. Cisco could have told the truth, in which case the Federation would have lost the war and billions of lives would have been lost. Do we really believe that Cisco would be so selfish? So selfish. I mean, it is to some degree selfish to say my honor is worth more than the lives of these billions of people. The honor of a Star Trek officer is contextually allowed. It is only to the truth, insofar as the truth doesn't include the death and the murder of 1 billion people. All these things are contextual. All of this stuff is emergent. All of this stuff is emergent. You rely on data but discount intuition that trumps data. Israel Anderson. Now, I'm a little bit in between on that. I'm a little in between. I'm not a robot in a sense. I tend to... There's an intuitive quality that that informs my judgment. Screw intuition, data, and evidence only. Yeah, that's... You're not a robot. There is not rational discourse without them. Yeah, that's what I mean. Absolutes. I don't like absolutes. To the gulag with dark roast. To the gulag. Not a Trekkie, obviously. Yeah, to the gulag. No free will equal meat robot. See, and they'll see, but I do think we have, to some degree, free will. And by the way, it's free will dependent upon whether or not, if you don't know you don't have free will, then what does it matter? What does it matter? You're still along for the ride. From the standpoint of a consciousness, you're along for the ride. Even if you knew each and everything was going to take place, unless you were going to off yourself, you're still stuck along for the ride. You knowing whether or not you have free will is irrelevant to this process. Consciousness, it seems like the point, is experience. And you do so over and over and over and over and over again. That seems to be the point. One choice after the next, after the next, after the next, yielding a certain consequence. Good, bad, somewhere in between. Sometimes the worst consequence yields to the best results and vice versa. It's life. It's life. I think there's purpose. I don't know that. I just think that. I have all sorts of weird and interesting experiences that I've talked about in the past. What do those things yield from the standpoint of what do I know? Nothing. Nothing at all. Do I have my own thoughts about what I think? Yes. But it's one of those things of, if we're having discourse about politics, those things don't necessarily and can't come into the picture. The moment that you bring your God into it, I've left the room. I've left the room. Logic says there's no God. That's not really true, truly. In fact, that's it. It might even... That's not true. I don't think that's true. Logic doesn't say anything. Your logic is based purely on your society and cultural upbringing. As an absolute. Your logic, your process of logic is based on where you come from, not necessarily as an absolute. There's certain things like numbers where you can say, yes, this is a logical, that point. But most of your life is not numbers. Most of your life is subjective. You're acted on by forces that respond to numbers. But the soft coloring of your life is shades of subjectivity. It's not a logic thing of no God. Logic is 1 + 1 is 2. That's about it. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. All right. Everyday Progressive Show. Jamarl, if you'd like another like-minded person to further discuss the largest consciousness system and experience, feel free to interview me on that if you like that sort of thing. I love Tom Campbell, man. My big toe, my big theory of everything. My only disagreement with Tom Campbell, I agree with him, has had many experiences. But it seems like see, it's not fully fair for me to say this because I could be talking on my ass. But all of these experiences that people have seem to be colored by them. Like there's no objective point of view. Like there's no way to rip yourself out of it and look down on it. At the end of the day, anything that you rip yourself out of, you're always somewhere else. It's like anywhere you go, there you are. And these aspects of these people themselves tend to color what they think of the world. So Tom Campbell is somewhat of a, let's be honest, he's somewhat of a stick in the mud. I don't mean that in the bad way. I just mean he seemed to be a rigid guy from the standpoint of physics and science. So his understanding of this became a larger consciousness system. Bob Monroe looks at this from the standpoint of, these various areas. So for him, it looked a particular way. All of these people have a particular disposition that seems to color how they view this phenomena. So it's not that I think Tom Campbell is wrong. Tom Campbell is hitting on something. But is that an objective point of view? I don't know if there is an objective point of view. There's just a point of view. And Is Tom Campbell absolutely right from the standpoint of how this works? I don't know. It's possible that the rigidity of him intervened. Now, the thing of this is, though, whether or not what this is, the only argument is that there is something. And Tom Campbell's argument is that there is something. So, yes, fascinated by it. Also, if I'm honest, I'm biased because Tom Campbell said that spirit guides are just robots, and that pissed me off. If I'm being honest, I'm really fucking biased on this. When he said that, I was like, what? What? No way. I was like, no way. It's like, no way, dude. If we fail to embrace objective truth regardless of the consequences, then we set up our society to be hijacked by corruption and those, right? I watched the tech talk about NEDs, pretty convincing. It is fascinating, right, Trudy? Near-death experiences? It is fascinating. Go further down the rabbit hole with Graham. That TED Talk didn't do him justice. That's fair. That's fair. Maybe that TED Talk didn't do him justice. Fair. I mean, you know, Graham has been doing this shit for a long time in the West. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. I mean, he has all sorts of videos. Picard didn't have free will. He was enslaved to alcohol. Picard wasn't enslaved to alcohol. That's why he didn't let Data go around murdering the crew civilians when he was not too drunk to underwear to stop it. He is not. He is not. I'm offended by that dude. He is not. Where's you didn't. You weren't doing that, were you, Picard? Even have Data right here. Who is this? Oh, Captain Kirk. Captain Kirk. Yeah. I keep these nearby. In fact, I'm probably going to take Picard with me on the trips. Alright. I technically died twice now, only once from a near-death experience. I've never had an NDE. I've had OBEs. I've had conscious out-of-body experiences. And I've had other just bizarre experiences, man. It just gets you to this point of like, either I believe my lying eyes, or I turn myself off to it. And how do you turn yourself off to what's considered reality at the point in which you've experienced it? But again, that's like phenomenology up to the point of just, I don't know. All right. I remember some sensations of feelings before I was born. That's fascinating. That's fucking fascinating. We're doing a show on Kelly Lane's channel tomorrow at 7:30 Pacific. Do you want to join? I don't think I'm going to be able to join tomorrow. We're going with my wife to take my dog to my mother-in-law's. Look, we're taking off, and I'm going to be able to interview some really interesting and cool people at various points around the globe. These last 2 weeks have been weird, man. I'm just saying it that way. These last 2 weeks have been weird and convoluted. So, epistemology. Oh, wow. Martian villager. Maybe. Maybe. I don't want to piss anybody off. That's the thing with that. Like, you got to be careful when you're dealing with people because sometimes they don't necessarily take that stuff all that well. Yeah, they may not, yeah, oh man, that's hard to have that conversation, dude. Like, because think about it. You ask somebody, you talk to them, and you're not attacking them. You're not, you know, trashing their religious beliefs or anything else. But you ask the secondary question of, why do you believe it? Right? I mean, why do I believe the things that I believe? Why do I have a humanitarian disposition? Why do I have this? And it will come at a point where it feels like you're challenging what they are. Like, because it feels silly to believe that there's a man in the sky. Now, the moment that you say you believe that there was a guy who survived in the belly of a whale, and then per se, yes, okay. Do you know any other time where a guy survived in the belly of a whale? No. Then why do you believe this? Well, God was involved. Okay, fair enough. God got involved. But why do you believe that? Like, at a certain point, it's going to piss them off. It's going to piss them off. Bro, progressives could benefit from street epistemology. Maybe. Maybe it helps avoid pissing people off. You know, the funny part is, when I was on Vince Ori's show, it's a thing of when you're interacting with other people, you have to deal with their world to some degree. You can't just blow past, you know. So I understand your point. This ability to be able to interact with people in a way that gets across what you need to get across without pissing people off. I totally understand that. Brahm, I don't believe in anything. That's why I'm trying to go back to school to study physics. You believe in physics, buddy. You seem to believe in physics. Alright. I'm going to leave this. Guys, I appreciate you guys coming to this. This is going to take place every week. It may not necessarily be every Friday, but it will be once a week, a patron appreciation show. At the first part of the week, I'm going to be giving away t-shirts. On the second part of the week, it's going to be question and answer. So, the items that are associated with the show are going to take place on the patron appreciation show. I wanted to have this on various shows, but my wife was like, well, put it on one show. So, alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. And Wes, thank you very much for your contribution. I appreciate you helping the show. Thanks guys.